Memory. It can be both a blessing and a curse. You'll always remember that beautiful moment when you and your family walked across golden sands by the sea on your favorite childhood vacation, your first kiss, the time you discovered your favorite movie, TV show, or book. But you'll always remember the time you said you too when the movie theater usher told you to enjoy the film, or when you first got your heart broken, or the first time you lost a friend or family member and realized someday that others would be mourning you, or that time a giant unkillable lizard tried to eat you alive. That's why the SCP Foundation has Amnestics, the course of miracle drugs that erase memories. Whether they're synthetic or taken from a giant godlike eel miles under the sea, Amnestics are the way the Foundation erases things that are better not remembered. But what would you like to forget? We put that question out to the wonderful fans of SCP Explained, and you delivered, telling us all about the anomalies or anomalous situations that are so horrifying you'd want the Foundation to neutralize the living hell out of you after an encounter. So let's jump right in and see what's better off stricken from our mental records. Random user said, "For me, it would be SCP-1733. Why, you may ask? Well, the overall thought of being trapped inside of a repeating cycle where you eventually break into insanity is scary to think about. I'd get my memory wiped any day of the week. And we are off to a strong, existentially horrifying start. Unless you're a super fan of the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat, being trapped in an endlessly recursive tape of the 2010 NBA season opener would be a memory you'd want to be erased. But man, that dunk from Robinson? An excellent play." Biotic Ninja said, "There's a lot I would voluntarily use Amnestics for, even without encountering SCPs. What makes you think I would have the mental willpower to resist taking a few if I so much encountered such a horrid thing? We appreciate your honesty. And to be fair, how do we know that you haven't used Amnestics already? You could have used it so many times to delete so many unpleasant experiences. How many gaps, black holes, exist in your recollections? Have you ever gone somewhere new and gotten that nagging sense you've been there before? Perhaps you have. Just be sure to like this video and leave a comment saying, 'Don't forget, I was here before,' in case you delete this memory too." William Clark said, "Honestly, I wish I could take Amnestics after just watching this channel's well-executed depiction of the red reality, and then reading comments that elaborated on some of the more graphic details. Well, that's incredibly kind of you, and we're equally disturbed by the nightmarish nature of SCP-3001. The place where Dr. Scranton has been trapped for uncountable years, losing his body and mind. Sadly for Scranton himself, there's no way we can ever get in there to give him some Amnestics himself, but we're sure he appreciates the sentiment." False Atlas said, "Definitely the bone hive and the flesh that hates. I already hate bugs and disease. Last thing I need for my mental health is to know those are running around somewhere." While Amnestics will solve a secondary encounter with the bone hive, earwigs, or the flesh that hates, we're sad to tell you that if you are the victim of either of these anomalies, no amount of Amnestics will soften the swirling void of horror your life will soon become. Though it might be funny to see a horrific flesh monster stumbling around and wondering where it left its car keys. True Void Chaos said, "SCP-1762. That was one of the few SCPs that brought me to tears, and despite never having met them, I really miss those dragons." Oh, thanks for reminding us about that one, True Void Chaos. Oh, now we're feeling sad again too. Oh god, where's the Amnestics? Keep it together. Sarah Jamesina Sarah said, "I feel like I'd use those if I ever participated with the Desire camera. I don't think I have any dark secret desires or that I'm evil or anything like that. Although the possibility of being shown my inner shadow has crossed my mind, I worry that seeing my true desire might make me too narrow-minded. I'm sorry to tell you this, Sarah, but we've already played out this scenario. We took a photo of you with the Desire camera and you were so utterly disturbed by the horrifying nature of your true desire. You immediately requested Amnestics, but we still know what you want. And we're considering drafting a restraining order." Frost King said, "The Yule Man is one of those SCPs that has given me chills to even think about. If it was real, I might have to choose ignorance on this one, boys. Now this is a dangerous one. After all, when the winter months draw in and you're settling down to enjoy the Christmas season, you might notice strange noises in your attic, funny smells coming from outside your house, darting shadows on the yard, the feeling that you're being watched. Maybe you'll just try to push those feelings down and enjoy the holiday, because you don't know about the danger lurking until it's too late. Ross Albatross said, I'd want to forget about the bowl of soup from Dad. The emotional triggers I personally have as someone who lost their father as a kid run deep. We're incredibly sorry to hear that, Ross, and we hope that you're able to find peace, or something close to it someday. Take it from someone who also lost their dad at a young age. Losing someone is never easy, and we hope you have friends and family in your life there to support you. J. Lego Ninjago said, the maybe they're monsters. Their idea even gives me chills. Monsters that can harm you, yet you are the only one able to see them. Also SCP-2508, a house you can't leave until you die that has happened to many Foundation workers, including O5-7. The idea of being trapped there forever in a place without any human contact just creeps me out. Both are indeed extremely disturbing concepts and could be things you're eager to forget, but sometimes it's best to keep those frightening memories for your own safety. To quote Rafiki, the past can hurt, but you can either run from it okay, or learn from it. That was close. Pseudo Spies said, while I feel like many people will go with better known SCPs, I would have to go with SCP-1981. Seeing that tape would be a scary thing to have to remember, and personally, I would want to rid of it as quickly as possible. Interestingly, the aides of Ronald Reagan himself also thought it was best to give him amnestics after seeing the Ronald Reagan cut up while talking tape. But because they didn't give him the proper amount, it wound up destroying his mind. So yeah, we suppose the moral of this story is to use amnestics responsibly. Juan Perea said, as much as I love 682 as a fictional monster, the mere idea of a life-hating, violent, hyper-adaptable, and unkillable atrocity would just be too much to bear. If it makes you feel any better, given how much he hates everyone, SCP-682 would probably take an amnestic to forget you as well. Max Powers, the name you love to touch, said, I think just watching what happens to the D-Class on a daily basis would make me want to forget. So many of those deaths would be very traumatic to watch. That is incredibly true. Despite the fact that many of the D-Classes are themselves violent criminals, the way the Foundation treats them is undeniably inhumane and horrific. While it's easier to make a greater good argument about all of their terrible fates, as an empathetic human being, it can't be easy to watch all this play out again and again. King Me 131 said, I'd probably go with something like the Sarkist cultists. If I were to encounter them, I'd probably be close to death because I love our evolution and growth with tech, and those guys would probably do all sorts of twisted things to me before the SCP Foundation can stop it, or anything involving the children of the Scarlet King for similar reasons. An interesting thought. Sometimes encountering groups of interest can be even more frightening than encountering the anomalies themselves. Sarkists will twist your body into the most nightmarish configurations imaginable, and the children of the Scarlet King might use dark rituals to impregnate you with more of their dark deity's progeny. So, yeah, both of these call for some sweet, sweet amnestics. Gene G said, I feel like I wouldn't really ever submit myself to amnestics. I have a really morbid curiosity that makes it so the more awful a thing I see, the more I want to understand it. So yeah, an MTF member is probably gonna have to stick me, or else I'd become a paranoid lunatic trying to figure out how anomalies work. Once again, we appreciate the honesty and self-awareness. It's very possible the Foundation would somehow trick you into undergoing amnestic treatments, so your investigations don't become a thorn in their side. And failing that, they might just do things the old-fashioned way and send an MTF hit squad to silence you permanently. Yeet Yeeter said, I feel as if having an encounter with SCP-087, since the only 3 documented cases have left the Class D prisoners in a state of shock or never to be heard of again. Another very wise choice. SCP-087, and more specifically the entity hiding within this bottomless staircase, leaves even its surviving victims in a state of permanent catatonia. Hopefully, amnestic treatment would allow you to regain your faculties and live something resembling a normal life afterwards. Richard Womack said, 096. I'm curious if the application of amnestics in a timely manner would quell its murderous rage. The SCP Foundation has been hoping to find this one out for some time now, actually. If you have SCP-096 coming after you, then you may as well want to take an amnestic. If it works, awesome. If not, at least you'll spend a few minutes in a state of sweet, blissful ignorance before being torn apart. Joaquin Palacios said, for me, the Panacea SCP. Mostly so that the way I don't live with the guilt of knowing that there is a way to prevent death from illness or injury, even if there is no non-anomalous cure. In short, if I knew about the Panacea, I would go mad trying to figure out a way to obtain it. Now this is an interesting one. So many people are sadly suffering from diseases with no non-anomalous cure, and if the Panacea was ever made public, it would surely become a kind of El Dorado for many suffering or wishing to profiteer from it. Wars would be started, people would turn on each other, the hunt would be endless and all-consuming. Perhaps it would be better to forget than to taunt us with false hope. Rahma Shifa said, SCP-4975. I'm definitely going to need Amnestics after hearing about that absolute terrible excuse for an SCP. It's just so disturbing. If you don't know what SCP-4975 is, then save yourself the trouble. Don't go searching about SCP-4975. You'll regret it. Don't say I didn't warn you. Well, personally, we don't think there's that much to worry. Wait, does anyone else hear that? Huh, I don't remember if I brought a clock in here. Must be a side effect of the Amnestics. Discord Nation said, SCP-023 the Black Shuck is one that comes to mind. Maybe the Amnestics can cancel out the anomalous effects. There's only so far you can try to outrun fate. If you look into the eyes of the Black Shuck, either you or a family member of yours is doomed to die. You can make yourself forget if it would bring you some comfort, but it would happen all the same. Hongai said, I'd say SCP-106, if by some miracle I survived his pocket dimension relatively unharmed. If you did, by some miracle, manage to survive being trapped in SCP-106's horrific pocket dimension, it's unsurprising that you'd need some amnestic therapy. Though it would leave you wondering why you've got all those scars and missing limbs and missing eyes and missing teeth. The old man certainly leaves his mark on his friends. Norby said, I'd probably take Amnestics from seeing SCP-2030, which I think is Laugh is Fun. It just has so many disturbing episodes that would make me want to forget it. What? That's ridiculous. Why would you ever want to forget any classic episodes of Laugh is Fun? That show is hilarious, especially the Margaret Thatcher episode. Some people just have no sense of humor. Dark Mega 5 said, that one fish that can hunt you from any body of water if you know about it. Can't get hunted if I forget about it. SCP-1128, also known as the Aquatic Horror, is the one thing more likely to give you hydrophobia than contracting rabies, and Amnestics is believed to be one of the few ways you might be able to escape its jaws of death. Still, you probably won't want to spend some time at the local pool anytime soon. Gaming Wolf ZJ said, if I survive the encounter, I'd definitely give myself Amnestics if I encountered SCP-3166. The idea of getting attacked by a guy dressed up as an overly obese ginger cat while grabbing rotten lasagna from its gullet just to shove it into my own is an image I would definitely use SCP Foundation certified brain bleach for. Look, Gaming Wolf, I get that almost being force-fed human flesh lasagna until you die by a mutant commercialized homunculus of a popular comic strip character is a traumatic experience that will leave you shaken up. But is that any excuse to fat-shame Garfield? Come on now. Let's stay civil here. 8-Ball Gaming said, if I saw someone being forced through SCP-957's chest cavity, then I would literally become a Class D to unsee it. Suit yourself, buddy. I actually think it's an extremely entertaining sight. To each their own, I suppose. LootPad67 said, being in 3008, it's such a terrifying thought that I would much prefer leaving it to my fantasy. Being trapped in the infinite IKEA is a truly terrifying thought, and one you might want to forget after escaping. That being said, being trapped in a regular IKEA is also pretty terrifying. You can really lose a whole Saturday trying to find a new desk in that garish Swedish flat pack hellscape. Can I, get some of those Amnestics? Thank you. Daniel Justice said, the living Legos, so that way every time I see them, it will be as if it's my first time seeing them and always make me happy. Well, that's certainly a delightful notion. We appreciate you giving us this wholesome suggestion in amongst the rest of the horrifying trauma, Daniel. It's very much appreciated. We'll give you a few doses of Amnestics as a thank you gift. Izzy Stardust said, not much in SCP, but a certain procedure we don't talk about. Thankfully, it is actually standard procedure to be given Amnestics after performing Procedure 110 Montauk, to preserve its high level of secrecy. But it does have its downsides. For example, you forget what chapter you were up to in the storybook. Nick T. Wolf Discusses said, I would take it if I met Clef. That guy sounds like no fun. With the odd way he is, I think he might be an unknown SCP. Sadly, we don't believe that Dr. Clef is anomalous. He's actually just a jerk. We still wouldn't blame you for wanting to take some amnestics after meeting him, though. Grand Worm said, "Well, to be honest, I would use it after watching a good movie or show to watch it again. The same goes for books." That's a fascinating approach. For what it's worth, there are a lot of wonderful movies, shows, and books out there, and a lot of wonderful YouTube videos here on SCP Explained. You might be limiting your scope by repeatedly wiping your memory and consuming the same pool of media again and again in perpetuity. But then again, maybe you're already stuck in that loop, and any good media you discover and enjoy in the future is just something you've seen and enjoyed, potentially hundreds or even thousands of times before. Aren't amnestics a little creepy like that? And there you have it, folks. Some of your weirdest, wildest, and most traumatic suggestions for all the anomalies worth forgetting, because remembering is just too painful. Thank you for sending in your thoughts. And if you think we missed any, please let us know down in the comments. And keep an eye on our community tab for more chances to take part in the next community response video. In the meantime, we'll, I'm sorry, what were we doing here again? Getting so forgetful these days. Might be my medication. Now go check out SCP-049 What Actually is the Pestilence? The Plague Doctor Questions and Theories. And SCP-096 Look at a Picture of Shy Guy in Space, The Shy Guy Questions and Theories, for more questions and answers from the SCP Explained community.